Can a pop song violate children's rights? That is the question Reason's Elizabeth Nolan Brown asks in a recent article. After a Colombian judge ruled reggaeton stars Karol G, J Balvin, and Maluma's controversial hit Plus 57 sexualizes minors. The line in question translates to, quote, a hottie since she was 14.
The court says the lyrics violate children's rights because they could reduce them to, quote, objects of desire and thereby affect their development. So, is this a case of protecting kids or stomping down on artistic freedom? And could it happen here in the US? Here to dive in is Elizabeth Nolan Brown, a senior editor at Reason magazine. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, first up, I think there's an important distinction that you draw in your piece that is worth reiterating here. This is not a court action that was taken under obscenity grounds. It's specifically relating to the idea that this song and these lyrics are harmful to children. Can you just explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Colombian obscenity law is like, but here in the United States, obscenity is a specific thing. It is one of the categories amended from the First Amendment, meaning, you can be arrested for speech that is considered obscene. But while there's different kind of weird standards that are a little bit vague for deciding what that is, there's no universe in which this lyric from this song is obscene. It is not graphic. It is not, part of something that has no artistic or entertainment value. It is definitely would not fall under at least the US, measure of obscenity, and they didn't try it as an obscenity. They said rather that it violates, like you said, it violates the rights of children by exposing them to, risks that can affect their development by sexualizing them.
Now, in the US, we have ratings for music and certain radio stations that only play music that is removed of vulgar language and things like that. But this order actually goes further and suggests that the song couldn't have been published in the first place. That seems quite an egregious step. I mean, walk us through what exactly the judge told these artists they were not allowed to do.
Right. So they said, they need to refrain from publishing music that violates the rights of children and teenagers, which presumably means this song or any other song that contains a similar sort of a lyric. The funny thing is, though, that way back last fall, they changed the lyric, and they changed the lyric in response to public outcry, which seems perfectly reasonable, right? Like people were offended by this. People spoke out. The Karol G said, I think you guys are misconstruing it. You're taking the lyric out of context. Nonetheless, we don't want to offend people. We don't want this to, distract from the song itself. So she changed it to a hottie since she was 18. Boom, taken care of. Like the free market, public responds, artists respond to them. We didn't need the court to step in, but here we are, 6, 8 months later, and the court's saying, like, you need to not publish this song. Well, they already changed that lyric. They already changed that song. So it just seems like almost, violating free speech rights and norms for no particular reason because it wasn't even an issue anymore.
And to the point about free speech rights, I mean, obviously there's the First Amendment here in the US. There is a whole judicial history of protecting free speech rights. So aside from frustrated fans of Colombian reggaeton here, how or why should people in the US care? What is the salience of this case to the US as you see it?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's because this wasn't a lyric that is necessarily being condoning the sexualization of children, right? Like maybe it's saying that's the way that this teenage girl considered herself. Maybe it's saying that's the way she was viewed in the world, and it's actually sort of a critique of the idea that some people are viewing a 14-year-old as a hottie. It's not necessarily the artists themselves saying we think a 14-year-old girl is hot. And I think there's a lot of kind of media that can be that sort of paradox where you are talking about some teenagers who are being sexual, but you are not sexualizing them. You are merely describing the fact that teenage sexuality does exist, and maybe you're even critiquing the way that that is happening in Colombia or in the United States or anywhere. So to say that there's never any reason why this could be not creepy and not bad. First of all, I don't think that's true. And second, we are seeing sort of attempts like this in the United States. I mean, we do have the First Amendment that's going to stop something like this Colombian ruling from happening strictly, but we do see all these laws being passed in states saying that, things that aren't obscene but are harmful to minors need to be banned, or at least need to be restricted from public places. And this harmful to minors, language is very vague and very subjective. And I think it could, include something like this song, or lyrics similar to this song could fall under some of these harmful to minors statutes. Maybe they wouldn't say you would ban this song entirely, but it would say, well, you can't ever play this song in a public place because it's harmful to minors.
There are some comparable songs, I would say, in the US to this song, and I'm thinking specifically of a couple of songs from Lana Del Rey, Carmen and Lolita, which sort of talk about minor sexualization, and we have not seen really the same backlash to those. And I think you're getting at sort of some of like the laws related to books in public libraries. I mean, to me, the distinction, which you pointed out, is that the US does not say you can't publish this, you can't even not disseminate this, but it can't be basically within easily accessible reach of minors. I view that as really sort of a reasonable middle ground here.
I think the trouble is that these harmful to minor statutes are so vague that what is considered things that could be harmful to minors is really subjective and really up to political and cultural interpretation. So, there's definitely some things that like we could all agree are not good for minors to be exposed to. But with the way some of these laws are working out in practice, you have anybody who's a drag queen being saying they couldn't be in a public place where any minors could see them. I mean, some drag is very raunchy. Some drag can be very PG and friendly. And you sort of have this, very conservative values baked into the idea that any sort of a gender transgression is therefore harmful to minors, and then you can't see that. You have some books where there's gay characters that are just having relationships, and they've been banned because they say, well, that's harmful to minors. And that seems like it goes above and beyond just, we don't want to expose minors to obscenity, to we're trying to control the values of what kind of art and literature and music and performances and things that minors get to see.
And before we let you go, Elizabeth, also to that point, I'm wondering, you kind of alluded in your piece to the idea that in the Colombian case, the court action against that song and the outrage about it may partly be related to a kind of class bias or other biases against reggaeton. And I think that is one of the issues that often comes up in music. I am going to show my advanced age here because I remember earlier debates about violent lyrics in American music, primarily geared towards hip hop. And the counterpoint that a lot of people offered was, Johnny Cash has a famous line, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die, which is pretty graphically violent, and no one seemed to object to that line from a very legendary white country artist. So those kind of elements in this are part of the debate as well, right?
Definitely. I remember those debates too. And I think that's just the danger here. It's that you are substituting the benefit of the state for the benefit of individuals, for the benefit of, parents who, should be able to control these things. And instead you're having politicians say, well, this is good, this is bad. And they are inevitably going to have some biases. And maybe that's class bias, maybe that's, ethnic bias, maybe that's a bias against, LGBTQ communities, whatever. But I think you really run the risk when you're letting the state determine what art should and shouldn't be seen by anybody or shouldn't be seen by minors, is that you're gonna get these biases involved, and it's not just gonna be strictly based on what is or isn't good for minors.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today on Rising. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, up next, there's infighting inside the Trump administration. We'll break it down on Rising.